if you felt like you was just being a salesman to them, or did you also feel like you were being a salesman to yourself?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I was doing it, but I was like, I'm doing it because I'm growing this thing. And it's, it's all for the best. And again, it's not a negative thing to do that, but it's not sustainable.
Not when you are selling yourself. I mean, when I say selling yourself, I specifically mean you're selling yourself something that isn't true.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're like, I'm
Like
cool.
you're selling it to them. That's one
Mhm.
thing to sell it to them, but you can't get lost into thinking that you are that because you're selling yourself the same lie.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because essentially,
Yeah.
selling is like marketing. It's
Mhm.
all half truths.
Yeah,
You know
kinda,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
But when you start buying
Mhm.
the half truths, that is when you become, like I said earlier, a
Yep.
person that nobody can recognize, that loved ones
Yep.
can't recognize, because they're like, okay, which version of you is actually the
That's
real
right.
you?
And when it gets big enough, which we weren't like, we're not famous. We had a, I say we, 'cause we had a whole team, but
You were famous to those
we
folks.
were pretty successful. But at a certain point, when it got beyond South Carolina to Charlotte to Atlanta to the Southeast to Austin to DC to Boston to Seattle, then to
Awesome.
it's not sustainable to like have all these different relationships. You know what I mean?
Not.
You can't do that. Like
Your brain can't handle it.
you're
Your
like,
body can't handle it
whoa,
either.
yeah.
And then you start doing that as opposed to being able to scale. Like you
Yeah,
can't
you just
scale when you essentially just taking. It reminds me of
mhm.
you see those old I would read in books about how they would take a guy and tie a horse to each appendage.
Oh yeah,
Pull them in
yeah, that's what
different
it feels
ways.
like.
That's what it's like.
For real.
So that's what you're doing
Yeah,
to yourself.
yeah.
And there's no way that could be
Mhm.
sustainable, as
Mhm.
opposed to doing the opposite, where you're bringing everybody into
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
And that's how individual brands scale.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
guess so.
companies scale,
Yeah.
because they're pulling everybody into the umbrella of, Nike does a great job of that. I'm pulling
They
all
do,
of these
yeah,
things
right.
into Nike, which is building Nike,
Yep.
as opposed to thinning
Mhm.
the brand out. You know what I mean? And so that philosophy works the same when it comes to your personal life, I think.
I think so too.
And it certainly has.
Yeah. And that was
So yeah.
me. I was, my personal world, and I had a business world, and I had the conference world,
Yeah.
and it was like I got to engineer these things,
Yeah.
and it just, it burns you
I
out.
used to even do the same thing with Love, Peace, and Hip Hop and Hip Hop Family Day. I'd
Well,
be
yeah,
like, all right, I'm
you
Love,
have,
Peace, and Hip Hop over here. I'm
yep,
OTR over here.
yep.
I'm Shakise over here. I'm Sherrod over here.
Well,
You
that's
know what I mean?
when I
It was
first
weird.
when I first started to know who you were, I thought you were
Yeah.
two different people.
I get it.
I'm not kidding.
I completely
I was like,
understand.
wait, no, that's Sherrod. And they're like, no, it's Shakise. I'm like, the hell are you? No. And they're like, dude, trust me. I'm like, okay.
All right.
And then,
I don't think it is. I met
and then
him
like,
before. He was not Shakise.
at some point, I'm like,
Totally
what do I
Sherrod.
call you? You're like, I don't care. I'm
People
like,
would do that.
I need to know.
I would show up. People would be like, do I call you Sherrod or Shakise?
I know.
I'm like, yeah.
I was one of them.
That was my own fault. And I didn't even understand I was making a schizo. And shout out to my boy KB. Like he said it in the most magnificent way that I think I said on the podcast last time I was here, when he was just like, yo, you're the only person I knew that was already an entity, but then decided to
make another one.
to make another one. You know what I mean? He was like, it's not called the Dana Owens show, bro. It's called the Queen Latifah show.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right. Well, I think,
Yeah.
I think early on I was thinking of, like, okay, well, I got to create this thing that could maybe be packaged up and sold.
Because you want so you want to sell it. So you want to do the whatever's going to attract people to buy it.
Yeah. And I was
That's
thinking,
what I was thinking.
Yeah. I was thinking branding. That's how branding happens. You create a little monster.
Version.
Yeah.
For them. Oh, but these people, like you said, they like to drink wine and get sloshed. All right, let me do that for them. Oh, but these guys, they're,
no offense to Landon Charleston, I love
you. So let me rent a car and make sure I'm looking this way. You know what I mean? Because you're thinking sales.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't know if you feel this way, but I certainly feel like a lot of times we end up doing stuff like that because we don't have no frame of reference.
Could be.
For me,
I had no mentors for that stuff.
No, man, I was freestyling.
There's nobody doing it.
And I knew nobody that was doing it. I had at least nobody that was close enough for me to talk to.
Right.
And so it's one
or
of
at
the
least
things.